Hello and welcome back to Forgotten Wisdom. I am Spirit and I'm here as your host. Today we're going to learn how to can ground or crushed tomatoes properly in a water bath canner. And to top it off, the elevation where we are located with the schoolie right now is over 8,000 feet. Now when it comes to canning, home canning, it matters. The elevation really matters. So it's a difference between processing something in a water bath for 30 minutes or 50 minutes. Usually something that has to be processed around 30 minutes. Here, over 8,000 feet, it has to be processed at 50 minutes. So what we do is we buy number 10 cans of food, and this is a very strategic way of saving a whole lot of money. Adjust the camera just a little bit. Take in consideration to only pay a few dollars for these ground tomatoes, and this is over 6 pounds of ground tomatoes. That says it is salsa style. And you see it's already torn up because I already opened it. But this right here is just a few dollars. Whenever you actually will spend a few dollars on a can or two of ground or crushed tomatoes normally. You can buy this number 10 cans of food, 6 pounds, and you can process this at home and put it in canning jars, and you can have somewhere around 7 quarts from this 1 6-pound number 10 can of ground tomatoes. If you would spend money on 7 quarts in a store, 7 cans, it's going to be a whole lot more money than what we spent on this right here. So, in order to process these, the first thing you have to do is get your rings, your canning rings, and your lids, which I have here in very hot water. Make sure they are sanitized and keep them in hot water. They need to be heated a little bit more, so they've been sitting here for a little while. Second thing you need to do is make sure you have your product heated as well, not to a boiling, but it needs to be hot so that when you place your ground tomatoes into your jars, it won't break the jar. Alright, so we have these. This is our entire can of ground tomatoes, and it's been heated to a good temperature to where it's nice and hot but not boiling. We have our lids that are being heated again because these need to stay hot. It helps them to seal, but also kills the bacteria and germs if there's any on there. Your rings don't matter so much because these would just be on the outside and then they're going to come off after the jars are sealed anyway. Over here in the water bath canner, I have got our jars. Our jars, you want to keep your jars nice and hot as well. And these are just the ball pint jars. And these will be perfect because one jar is about the size of one can when you buy in the store, approximately. So you could put these on your pantry shelf, and when you needed a can of ground or crushed tomatoes, just pop one open and the rest of it stays good. Take it in consideration, you open this can, you have a whole 6 pounds of crushed tomatoes that you have to do something with immediately. So while our lids are heating up, our jars have been warmed, and I'm just taking them out of the canner now. And usually around 6 pounds, 6.5 pounds of these crushed tomatoes will yield about 7 pints. Now these are going to be water bathed, so they're usually around 30 minutes for a good water bath normally, but at our elevation where we had the schoolie parked, as I said earlier, it's going to take 50 minutes to process these tomatoes in the jars. You want to make sure that the water is over top of your jars by about 1 inch. and this is a very large canner. I could probably put 7, 8, 9, probably 9 pints, I would think, in there at the same time, but 7 is a good amount. Now, the next thing you're going to do once you get your jars nice and hot, before they cool down, you're going to take your hot tomatoes. This is really good for salsa right here. Trusty kitchen funnel. And you want to fill your jars to where there's about an inch of headspace so that there will be a proper seal. Now this is a really easy canning process, because most everything you need is here already. So about 1 inch from the top. Okay, we're going to fill all of our jars that way. Sounds like this may be really hot. Yes, that is really hot, so we'll turn those lids off. Alright, next jar, we fill it up. Just ladle your tomatoes in there. Be careful not to put too much. That's good. It's okay if you make a little bit of a mess. We're going to clean these jars up before we put any lids on them. This is always a good practice to wipe the rims anyway, but the entire jar will be cleaned. Now here, where we're parked at this time of year, we're pretty much out in the wilderness of the San Francisco Peaks in northern Arizona. And the elevation, like I said, is a little over 8,000 feet. I think it's around 8,025 actually. So that means you have to process your jars in a water bath a little bit longer so that they seal properly. Make sure that your tomatoes are hot. It improves the sealing time and the sealing quality. If it cools down and you got something to do, you want to make sure you heat them back up before continuing to fill the jars. Looks like I may be pretty spot on about how many jars. That's 6 pounds, or 6.5 pounds as it is, I think. Yeah, almost 7 pounds. 6 pounds and 9 ounces of ground or crushed tomato. Looks like I may be spot on about 7 pints. The schoolie right now is parked in the San Francisco Peaks Wilderness, and we usually park here through summertime and into the fall. We love the sound of the elks bugling at nighttime. It starts around September. We love the sight that we see in the distance of the mountains that surround this place as they change into the fall colors. We love the sight of wild deer packs, deer herds, packs of coyotes for sure. We can hear the coyotes howling at nighttime. This lets you know, it reminds you that you're out in nature. You're not near any large cities or big tall buildings. Now look at that. I'm going to take a spoon and push all of this out of the funnel. Make sure to preserve this bounty as much as possible. Alright, oh, that's San Marzano. That tastes great. Now looky there, it did exactly 7 pints. So we're looking at almost 7 pounds. Definitely did 7 pints. Now this can be used to make salsa. It can be used to make ketchup. And we make our own ketchup, our own salsa. We do all that. Wipe off all of your rims. It can be used to make pasta sauce. Put it on your pasta, soups and stews. But the thing is, you save a lot of money by buying it, 6 pounds, 7 pounds, or whatever you can get at a time, compared to just buying maybe 4 cans of crushed tomatoes in the store. Now, if you're like us and you like to be prepared and stock up on things, this is a very good idea. It saves you a ton of money, because usually these number 10 cans are so much cheaper than just buying 7 normal cans of crushed tomatoes. And you can do this with anything, but right now we're doing crushed tomatoes, or as they call it, ground tomatoes. Alright, so now we got our rims clean. Set this out of the way. Very good. Alrighty, now I don't have what I need, and what I need is a magnet. However, I have a trusty spoon. I'm just going to pull these out of the very hot water, place them neatly on top of the jars. It's very important that your lids fit and are clean and hot. The heat is going to help these rubber seals that's around those fit to the jar much better. Make sure they fit really good. Yep. If I had a little kitchen magnet like I should have, it wouldn't burn my fingers. But we use what we got. Alright, all of our lids are on our jars. I've inspected the lids and made sure that they were in good shape ahead of time. Now just take your rings, put them onto your jar, and hold that lid down nice and tight. You don't want them spraying out inside the canner. And I have my canning water still heated. A very small amount of flame underneath the canner while I was doing all of this, just so the water doesn't cool down too fast. Makes the job a lot quicker. Alright, we have 7 pints. Lid and rings nice and tight. Now I'm just going to drop these back into the canner while the jars are still very hot, so that they don't break. The water is nice and hot. Just ease them in there. It's not too hot I can't put my fingers in it. I was careful to do that. Just put them in slowly. Let the jars get used to the water. Even though they're hot, I like to be extra careful. I don't have a whole lot of extra jars, so you want to be careful with what you have. Living like us, off the grid, schooly life, things like this, these are very important to us. It's just a simple jar, right? Yeah, to most people, but to us, this is our life. They're very important. So be careful with what we have. Now it looks like there's too much water in here, so I'm actually going to use the ladle, and I'm going to take some of that water out, because you don't want it to where it's going to splash out and make a mess. And it doesn't have to be too far over the top of the jar. The rule of thumb is that you want it about 1 inch, at least the top's covered, but maybe about 1 inch above the jars. And I'm going to process this, like I said, at my altitude for about 50 minutes. That means I'm going to boil these in this water bath canner for that long. Now make sure that if you use a water bath canner instead of a pressure canner, and you're doing it this way, that you have something for the jars to sit on. And my jars are sitting on a canning rack. that doubles as a steamer rack. That way the heat on the bottom of the canner isn't too much for your jars. There's quite a bit of water in here. So I'm going to take most of it out to where there's not too much. You know, living on a 36-foot Bluebird 1993 converted schoolie, you don't have a lot of room, but you learn how to make do with the room you have, and you'd be amazed at how much space you probably do have, and you just need to learn how to use it. And one of those things is having lots of food that's been canned up, large canners like I got right here. This is a very large canner, numerous pans. So we built a really nice pantry. We like to call it our survival pantry. It's where we keep all of our stocks at. And it doubles as a supply location as well for our pans and stuff. Alright, turn up the fire. Looks like the water is probably a little more than an inch, but my pan here is full. I can put a little bit in the saucepan because it's going to have to be washed anyway. We don't want to take too much out, but we don't need all of this water. This is rainwater, in case you wonder, man, he's wasting a lot of water. No, this is actually rainwater. We catch water to use for purposes of watering our plants. Our dog, Bendy dog there, loves rainwater, canning purposes, cleaning and such. And then we have purified water that we get it at a local public water supply, and then we filter it in our pure system that we have, and that's what we use for cooking and drinking. But now, put the top onto your canner. Alright, I'm just going to let this start to boil. Once it starts to boil, I'm going to process this. I'm going to let it boil for 50 minutes. And then I'm going to take the jars out and set them on the counter over here, and I'm going to let them cool. And when they start to cool down, you're going to notice that they start popping. The lids will pop whenever they're ready. And that right there is the sound you want to hear. I got my sleeve wet. And once the seals are set, we check them and make sure everything's alright and there's nothing wrong with the seals. Then we take the rings off. Or you can leave them on, but it's good practice to take them off, because later on, if you have your jars in your pantry and one of them seal gets broken, maybe there's something in it that makes it pop up, the ring is going to hold it down, and you're not going to know about it until it's too late, and it becomes very nasty, makes a mess maybe. But take your rings off, store your jars in your pantry, and then you'll know if something pops and comes unsealed, because you can see the seal there, and then you can take care of that as you need. So that is how you can save a lot of money. Buy number 10 cans, 6 pounds at a time, 7 pounds almost. I've got sauerkraut like this, vegetables, more different types of tomatoes. We have a can of diced tomatoes that I'm going to be doing next. The same way, I got to get some more jars, but once I do, we'll be able to put that into the pantry as well. Alright, and that is how you process your own 6-pound ground tomatoes into usable pint jars, and you just pull one off the shelf when you need to make a meal, and you're good to go. Alright, this has been Spirit Walker. I appreciate you stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. That way we can continue to make more videos for you. And check out the links in the description. And we'll see you next time at the Schoolie Kitchen here on Forgotten Wisdom.